Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Kageyama, and I'd like to welcome everyone here to the Cancer Conquering Community. And today is May 1st, and I'm not sure where you are in the world, but here in Texas, it is absolutely gorgeous. Really, really beautiful day. We are so thankful. We had a lot of rain in this past week, and we got more coming, but today the weather gave us a break and it's absolutely gorgeous. So hopefully it's good with you as well. We have an incredible speaker, incredible human being. If you've seen our Facebook page, he is um, he took care of his wife, Marcy, his care as a caregiver. He's a scientist. He's knowledgeable in biochemistry and biology. He's also a daredevil. He's a barefoot water skier. Um what do you call it? I'll let him talk. I'll let him tell you because I'm trying to cite it off memory. But he's an amazing, amazing person. And at this time, I'd like to introduce to you Mr. Chip Littlejohn. So, Chip, please introduce yourself and let's get into a great conversation because what this channel is all about hope and inspiration because everybody, no matter if they're going through cancer, any health crisis, life needs hope and inspiration because, we come in to this group as individuals, but as a collective, we all become stronger because we all connect and, we are able to connect with people who are going through similar things or have people close to them have gone through similar things. So at this time, Chip, please take the floor and thank you for having. So happy to have you.
Well, thank you, Mark. Um, Really interesting the way that these calls are prepared before the recording starts. Everyone who's attending live introduces themselves and tells their story. And so if you're watching this as a recording and you're considering joining the group live, that's a really neat dynamic. And so the group approach is especially interesting to me. And because I hope you can tell as we go on here today, I have been immersed in this topic um, for quite a while as a caregiver. And as a result of that, um, I guess you could say have gotten into the struggle. Um, Mark was talking about I've had a pretty interesting life. Generally, if it isn't fun, I won't do it. How you work that around into this kind of a effort is interesting. But guess what? It's more fun if you're winning. Can everybody agree to that? More fun to go to the doctor if you're showing off, more fun to fight these problems if you're winning. And so that's really the way that I approach it. I have a little saying, and it came from special forces, but I've modified it for this group. And it's going to go this way. Um, you tend to get singled out one at a time and you feel like there isn't a group, right? So here's how the saying goes. We, the alone and unappreciated, the patients and caregivers, have been doing so much with so little for so long that we can now do practically anything beginning with nothing. So, what's the magic of Mark Kageyama and the Conquering Group? It's the group. You start getting together into a group and you start to amass power. You begin to listen to people's story. What's the best thing you've found so far? Well, let me tell you the best thing I've found so far. There's an interesting thought to me, and it cuts to the similarities between us all. A healthy man has a million dreams. A sick person, but one. And so the story that I'm here to talk about is my wife and a little history leading up to it that explains her fear of doing what we saw others do. When I was a young boy, my grandmother breast, some kind of a problem back in the late 50s, early 60s. Yeah, is there a place? Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Okay. I get to have an office. I've been in a hallway here. Hang on just a second. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay, cool. Thank you. Because sometimes other people use you. All right. Wow. I just moved up in the world. I have a spot with a view. Okay. No problem. So, pretty cool. I work with people, and you never know how much they know about you when you start out. So, my grandmother suffered horribly, and I remember watching that. And then, I mean, she's a super important person to me, pretty much raised me. Uh, my dad, Air Force guy, didn't stay with our family for very long. Got a call one day. Do you want to talk to your dad? Didn't know he was going to die the next day. This was what he was dying of. Got a stepdad, better kind of a guy. Always admired the guy that stepped up more than the guy that stepped back. Decided to be more like him than the other one. And many of you are stepping up in your lives in this way for sure. Um, he was a tail gunner in the Korean War and the bombers. Went to places where nobody supposedly was. Fireman oiler on the railroad. Something went wrong in his throat. Powerful man. Got to the point that he was so badly hurt, embarrassed, humbled by being harmed. And it eventually took his life. Then Marcy's parents, her mom, something happened in her brain. Her dad, something happened in his colon. Then one day, I'm out mowing the lawn, and Marcy drops a hairbrush, bends over to pick it up. Something hurts so bad in her abdomen that she drops to the floor and cannot get up. I don't know this is happening. Come in and I hear thumping on the wall. She's beating on the door trying to get attention. Whatever was growing in there had twisted and suddenly went from no evidence to absolute abject misery. And I kind of prefer that for the details, she tells her own story. I suspect there'll be a day that you get to hear her tell her story. But it was, guys right down the block delivered the kids, went over there, surgery that day. Test of the tissues came back not so good. Next week, we go to Colorado, University of Colorado, Anschutz Cancer Center, University of Colorado. We start driving in, and I bet a lot of you guys can relate to some of this. Wow. All of a sudden, there's cranes all across the skyline, building one new building after another. Little did I know at that time that it was the Children's Center, the Veterans Center, the Women's Center, one after another centers. And the roads were beautiful and perfect, and everything was landscaped, and the horticulture was great. And as you pulled up, valets came to meet you. And it just struck me, the term at that moment. I said, oh my God, this is the dark Disneyland. Because it was like everything gets so fancy when you start pulling into Disneyland because you're approaching the money. And as you're approaching these big clinics, you're approaching the money. And then we went in and everybody was shuffling around, and it was so alone feeling. And they recommended that, another surgeon, little gal from Texas, super good, I think, told Marcy she needed follow-up treatment. Well, what's that going to be? Well, it's going to be Taxol, carboplatin, radiation, 18 rounds of each. And she said, I'm sensitive to everything. I have tremendous fear of doing those things. And the surgeon actually said to her, if you don't take those follow-up treatments, you have wasted my surgery. Anybody have things said to you that firmly? Had one, yeah, and I'm on these conversations all the time. Had one a couple of days ago. The surgeon said, if you don't take these follow-up treatments, you will die, to the person. And she still wouldn't do it. Her dad and her brother came to her and begged her, are the family interactions here. You have to do it. And she still wouldn't do it. So she said, one of the docs called her aside and said, you don't want to unhook from the medical community because you need the diagnostics at least. So what you do is you ask for a second opinion or a third opinion, and it buys you time. And then you can use that time to do every right thing all at once. And sometimes that's enough to make the difference. That's the story. So we decided the next place we chose to go was interesting. I happen to know the lead gastroenterologist at the Cancer Treatment Centers of America in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He was on a scientific advisory board with the biochemist. I am now on that same scientific advisory board. He was elderly at that time and has since died. But it led to me getting to be who I am today and being able to be of value to this conversation in this group. Got there, and I thought it was so interesting. And to me, this is what makes this group interesting. The first time I had seen it, the patients interacted with each other. They ate together. They'd sit together and visit, not like the other one, not like the Dark Disneyland. And the founder of that institution, I think it's been bought up by something else now, I don't know if it's the same, wanted to treat the patients and the caregivers in special ways. One of the things that I found fascinating, they could not advertise it because it would be called enticement. But when we went there, they would cover her plane ticket and mine. And they couldn't advertise that. Yeah, I saw James say, "Oh, wow." I said, "Oh, wow," too. And they can't advertise that. Then you get there and you had access to all kinds of healthy practitioners in the same clinic. They met in groups with the regular medical people to talk about your situation. So there were spiritual counselors, nutritional counselors, massage therapists, chiropractors. And you could have as many appointments as you wanted to schedule for free. But all of the proceeds to the institution came from the standard of care. They still had regular oncologists and they had to recommend the standard of care. Marcy still didn't do it. So there was going to be an interim time between that appointment and the next appointment, the next evaluation. We went home. We contacted the best people we knew, took everything that we knew in our experiences and put it together, and she set out to be a better, well, let's put it this way, a poorer host. The object being to be a poor host for the problem so that it can't live in you, right? You kind of get the idea. One of the main things, which was a challenge for her, was to just unhook from sugar. How does a PET scan work? Positron emission tomography. You go in, you don't eat for a while, and they give you intravenously glucose marked with a radioactive fluoride ion because that kind of a cell, mitochondria doesn't work anymore. Have you ever heard the metabolic dysfunction theory of cancer, or the mitochondrial dysfunction? Well, if their mitochondria don't work, how are they going to make power? They become dependent on fermentation. So they have to have sugar and break it down to make power. So they are voracious eaters, indiscriminate eaters. They will gobble up sugar, even radioactive sugar, faster than any other thing in your body. That's how a PET scan works. Positron emission tomography. The places where they gobbled it up lights up on the screen, and it gives evidence about what's going on. So we go home and do all these right things, and it was torturous because it seemed like we were constantly redeciding. Every hour, every half hour, every minute, redeciding, what are we going to do? Are we going to do the medical, the natural, or the mix? What are we going to do? And finally, this is a big key for us, and maybe for some of you. We said, okay, let's hook a time frame to it. We believe that we've got some time created by the surgery. Now they're chasing the microscopic form of the disease, don't know if it's there or not there. Single cells that might set up shop someplace else. That's the fear. But we're going to treat you as though it is there. Unfortunately, and this is my word, the selectivity is not there. And throughout the things that I'm searching for, one of the key things I'm looking for is selectivity. Hurts the bad cells, but not the good cells. So we just heard that the bad cells gobble up sugar and the good ones not so much, not as fast. There's a trait we could exploit. And so one of the most powerful things that you can do is to just stop consuming sugar. As powerful as any product or any doctor, and it doesn't cost a penny. I'm sad to tell you that I used to be University of Nebraska Farm Systems Manager in the Panhandle of Nebraska, and I am one of the world's foremost experts on growing sugar beets. I've hauled thousands of loads to the bigger factory in our town, one of the biggest factories in the world. After we grow the beautiful fields of sugar beets, now they're GMO because they're Roundup ready. They have a gene so that you can put glyphosate on them. We're outsmarting ourselves, you guys. The leaves, which would be good and healthy, we turn them back to the soil. The beets we take into the factory, the fiber we feed to the livestock. The only thing that goes to the humans is pure white crystalline drug quality sugar that makes people sick, that feeds a bad cell. Biggest two employers in my town, sugar factory and the hospital. Which one's more powerful? Sugar factory, it can feed lots of hospitals with patients. What are the things that harm people? What are the things that cause illness and death in humans? It's been the same for a long time. Heart attack, cancer, stroke, complications due to diabetes, and someplace in that mix, adverse interactions from medical procedures and drugs. Those are the things that kill people. In Nebraska, interestingly enough, a couple of years ago, cancer took the #1 place from heart disease as far as a killer of people in Nebraska. It's in the news. So, interestingly enough, Well, this is a bit, some things need to be a little bit shocking and gross and a little bit harsh, maybe. But when we went back and we're getting evaluated, they met in their team. They came back to tell Marcy his results. She got her new set of testing done. So these would be the blood markers, the PET scan, MRI, that kind of thing. And she said, well, and they said, this is what you got to do. We're going to set you up for infusions and you got to do the standard of care. And she said, well, how were my tests? And the gal looked down at him and almost said to herself, we have healthy 18-year-old women that would like to put numbers up like this. And I'm thinking, okay, we got to go home. They said, no, because of what you have had and the surgery you've had, you have to do the standard of care. And, that really shocked my wife. You guys have all been shocked in these ways before. You can relate probably to what I'm saying. And you can do both together if you wish. A simple way of knowing which place you're in is you can say, hey, doc, I trust you. I think you're the smartest guy in your field. And if you say, I'll do it if you do it. If the doc looks you in the eye and says, well, I'm not sick, I'm not going to do it. Well, you're on the medical side. If you look at me and say, okay, I'll do it if you do it. Well, yeah, I'm doing it, for high performance. Once you're well, you keep doing the right things for high performance. Now you're on the other side of the moon. That's the natural side. You can use both together, either one or both together. It's your choice. But in that moment, and I'm in that room in my mind right now, Marcy's gone quiet because she was thinking, okay, I did it. I get to go home. And they're saying, we need to schedule you for a port and to start your infusions. And so she fell quiet. Not common for her. You'll see if she speaks one day. And looked at me and said, well, do you have any questions? I said, well, yeah, just two. And they said, okay, the gal said it, the gal that was going to do the infusions, the oncologist. And she said, okay, what are your questions? I said, well, number one, could you please tell me how these treatments differentiate between the good cells and the bad cells so that they don't hurt the good cells? And of course they don't. And she said, well, they don't. And I thought to myself, okay. She said, well, what's your other question? And I said, okay, you said this is going to be Taxol and carboplatin. Can you please tell me how those two medications kill? How do they kill the cells? And she started into like a third grade explanation. And when she said, it's kind of like whack-a-mole, I looked her right in the eye and I said, I think I do know how they work, and what you're telling me is not correct. And she said, maybe I better look it up. Nobody ever asked me that before. For God's sake, shouldn't she have asked herself that before? Right? If it makes believe it or not, cells have skeletons and they have to soften and flex for a cell to divide. If they become brittle, that's one of the mechanisms. That's Taxol. How does it prevent the cells from dividing? But the good ones and the bad ones. What if you could find things, and let's just raise this question for a second. Why doesn't everybody get these problems every day? We all have cells that go bad every day. What's protecting us? Well, that's our immune system. Inside the cells, the tumor suppressing genes, P21, P27, P53. Outside, the immune cells, T cells, NK cells, macrophages, they catch it. Well, they got fooled. This particular cell went bad in such a way that hid from our protection, hid from our immune system. And so if we can find ways to ask the immune system to double check its work, if we can pull a fire alarm that it does see, then the immune system can do what it's always done and step up and protect you again.
Hey, Chip, let me step in here real quick. And would you mind sharing your background on what you're speaking from so that people know, as far as the scientific basis and where you're coming from? Because this is very important because what Chip is saying is just not conjecture, it's not something he made up.
People do frequently ask me that, and I'm not sure they understand more when I say where I came from, but where the ideas come from is probably the big deal. I've always been fascinated with living things and what makes us more alive. Somehow or another, I wound up in special forces for the Air Force, preparing to do something I hoped I never would have to do. Here, I get to do something that I always hoped I could do, which is help people. One of the first people who introduced themselves today before we came on the recording was Bill Boyce. And I've had the conversation that he was starting thousands of times, maybe tens of thousands of times. Men who have a problem with their prostate began to realize that it's barbaric, it's inhumane what we do to men with prostate problems in 2025. Call it hormone therapy. In their own literature, it says chemical castration, and then you have chemical castration resistant chemotherapies. Well, that's a little bit clearer statement. I see William bobbing his head. Yeah, he understands. And so, you know, they, so where does this come from? I've been working with a biochemist for 20 years, 20 years. He was trained at the Duke Cancer Treatment Research Center, the Comprehensive Cancer Research Center, as a computer-assisted designer. He worked with, so how do I know these things? Monroe Wall, who created Taxol while working with the biochemist, Rick Deitch. And so got a Nobel Prize. And Gertrude Elion was in her 80s at the time. Created camptothecin and camptothecin analogs. Perfect in lab animals. They knew you give me a lab animal with a growth and we'll stop it with camptothecin. Unfortunately, when they went into humans, it would adhere to a protein that the animals didn't have called circulating human albumin. I hope you can tell that I talk and teach about these things a lot of times. How do you remember circulating human albumin? I would to tell people, you know more than you think you do. What are the two parts of a chicken egg? It's the yolk and the albumin. So now you can remember circulating human albumin. That's the protein that attaches to, gets sticky, plugs up the kidneys. Now you have to have a nephrologist monitoring so you don't accidentally wipe out your kidneys when you're trying to go after the bad cell. His job specifically was to figure out how to hurt you less when you're taking these treatments. He was able to create in a computer program drugs that it would take years to create and test in the labs. So it sped up the programs a lot, helped them get their Nobel Prize. But all day long, he's essentially digging a trench in the dirt with a wooden handled shovel, trying to figure out how to make these things hurt you less to help you. I hope you can tell I work on the language. How do we hurt you less to help you? That was his job. Well, if that was your job and you were digging a trench with a shovel, wouldn't you be maybe one of the most likely people to think, why don't we just hook a shovel to a tractor? What would that be like? What if we put a shovel on a bulldozer? Now we'd have a track hoe. Now we could really do so. So he was thinking then, isn't there something we could do that wouldn't hurt you to help you, that at least be a wash? And then the big question came into his mind. What could we do to help you to help you? What would that look like? And the reason I work with him is that I get to help represent his lifetime of answers to that question. What can we do to help you to help you? What can we do to call your own defenses back into the game? The invisible, the unknowable, the untouchable, the impossible. How do we make those visible, knowable, touchable, defeatable? What can we do to do that? Can we build groups to do that? And it's interesting that if indeed there are groups that are building in the world, isn't there a chance that the groups would start finding each other? Well, the bridges between those become precious. Thomas Comiskey, I know him by, happens to be one of those bridges. He came across you guys and thought, okay, I want to find out what they're doing, and built a bridge. And then Mark was pretty cautious, about a group touching another group, and still cautious. I'm not saying all I know today by a long shot, but we're laying some groundwork. We're building a bridge between us. We're seeing if there's trust and common interest. And with that, I go back to the thought we started with. Healthy person has a million dreams. A sick person, but one. So may I hand it back to you, Mark, please?
I absolutely love that line. I mean, that is spectacular, and I'm gonna try to remember that one, Chip. I I think that why don't we do this? Why don't we open up for any comments or questions right now, and then we can get into, a different topic, go further along in the journey as well. Does anybody have any comments or questions that they want to say? You could just go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you very much. That was to say eye-opening and exactly what I've been looking to hear. This is the first time I heard something that's proactive and not all the stuff. I mean, the answers I've been getting are every step of the way is they tell you all the way up to, thought I was going to be done with this in May. And each step of the way, it's like been pushed off and pushed off. I haven't been really told exactly what's going on. And the lack of information has been amazing because I haven't had any real dealings with medical stuff for a long time. So all of a sudden I'm hearing medical terms and I have no idea what questions to ask. This has been seriously eye-opening for me, and I really appreciate it. I'm hoping right now we're getting ready to leave because we're headed to Tampa to go to the Moffitt Cancer Center, and I pray that I'm not going to the dark Disneyland. I will let you know because I'm going to be on the next call, and I got to drop now. But I just want to thank you all. God bless you all for sharing what you've done and for allowing me in this group. I appreciate it.
Hey, thank you, Bill. Good luck, and I'll be in touch with you and Debbie.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
You bet. You bet. Anybody else have a comment or question?
Oh, he just left. I was going to tell that person who just left. Yeah, it is unbelievable how it's still in 2025 with all the communication stuff we have, to texting, all this stuff that people are left in the dark. I do not get it. I think it's inhumane. Uh, so for context, I've had 75 MRIs, and every time I go in there, not every time, sometimes I'm not worried about it, but every time I go in there, it's a mini trauma. And it used to take 10 weeks, no, sorry, pardon me, 2 weeks to get the results. And so I was in purgatory over and over and over again until I said, there's got to be a better way. And they had the results in 2 days, but it just got to my doctor. Sorry, I had to schedule with my doctor who was in the cancer center 14 days later. And so I'm waiting around for 2 weeks. I didn't was Stop telling my wife, stop telling my kids I was going, and I was isolated. And then thank God, ah, you know, uh, success. But the transparent communication between doctor and patient, I don't think the doctors are doing it on purpose, but the system is so messed up, and I don't know what to do about that. And furthermore, Chip, thank you for sharing me about chemical castration. I had a person that showed up in a business meeting, and at the end he said to me, "You've had cancer, right?" And I said, "Yes, I have." And he said, "Well, I can't get it up anymore, and I'm failing at work because of that." And he had nobody to talk to. Like he talked to me, I was a stranger at the time. So there's this community is very important. So we can share, what's wrong with the system and figure out a way to change it. I don't know all the ways to change it, but I'm hopeful that together we can do something with it.
So I drew a picture before I started speaking to you guys today, and this is the way I think it's going to happen, Michael. The answer isn't going to come from within the institution and come out to the public. It's going to rise up with us and run over the walls from the outside in. That's how important
Agreed.
this is.
I agree.
If
So
I
They've
may,
gotten pigeonholed. They've gotten nailed down. The people who are collecting the money, then dispersing it, have taken control.
I think Chip and Mike, it's incredible the story. Thank you, Chip, for a phenomenal story. And so much of this, it seems to be predominant throughout the whole cancer community, and realistically, probably throughout healthcare. My journey was all about uh, physician apathy. There was just no interest in me other than I was providing a salary to my oncologist. And when I see and I hear these stories, it's over and over again that as I think you alluded to, I do think they care up to a point, but I think they become so unaware and detached and desensitized, they don't realize what we're dealing with, what we go through, not just on a day by day basis, but our families, the people we love, the people we care about. And this has got to be something that, at the very least, through hopefully my newsletter and groups like this, we have to put the spotlight back where it belongs. If everybody starts caring about the processes involved and caring about the end results rather than just the financial impact, and it seems as though that's the only motivation on the medical side, which I'm sure it's not, but that's how it seems. If we can start to highlight that story and to start getting out that, wait a minute, there's somebody on the end of this looking for the results with a family, with people that love them, with the need to know. And if it's just information, so be it, but at least provide it, and provide it in such a way that whoever wants to and needs to can take that information and be better for it. So we're not just another cog in the system. We're the ones with the problem. They're the ones, hopefully, with the solutions. But the transparency is just not there. The communication is just not there. We're their reason for what they do. And there's got to be a better way in the whole transparency sector that we can get this information out there. And that in large part is why I'm hoping to do the newsletter, to get the information out there, but to highlight exactly what you both have been talking about. Let's get it on the record, so to speak, that we're people just like the physicians, just like those that are involved in the processes. And we got to come together to care about the results and what is being done rather than I know more than you, do as you're told, and just go about your business. And hopefully you'll survive. If you don't, well, I'll chalk it up to my experience and maybe try something new some other way down the line. That's not
So,
acceptable.
so I have a
So
question for
James,
you. Go ahead.
just well, don't lose it, Michael. Jamie, I just wanted a couple things real quick. I'm in touch with lots and lots of people on these topics. And I will say, when a physician walks around to the other end of the stethoscope, oftentimes they are shocked at what their experience is interacting with their own medical community. When all of a sudden, they go to the side that doesn't go in your ears, and they're the one being evaluated, and they're the ones that get 5 minutes to talk to somebody when they need an hour. Who do you sit down and talk to? It's one of the big questions. And so I have one little thing, Michael, before
Well, go
that
ahead.
I wanted to say to
You,
Jamie.
you have the floor.
Went to a guy's office to speak to him one day. Had a sign on his desk. It said, "No one of us is as smart as all of us." And I thought, okay, well, that's great. At least he's going to listen. We'll get a talk. And actually, I spoke to him last night. He's in his 80s now, and wanted me to help with another person. Now, many people, including his wife, who have been in this situation, we've been able to help. And how do we do that? Well, I had to add to his sign as I began working with this biochemist. The sign on his desk in my mind now says, and I did give a presentation in his living room, and he went and got the sign that used to be on his desk. The sign to me now says, "No one of us is as smart as all of us. But even the best and brightest, the most compassionate among us who become our medical professionals," just like you said, Jamie, "are not as smart as the things that happen automatically in a healthy organism, in a healthy human system." That's the power we tap into. That's why we win. Oh, somebody's coming to see me. I'm getting appointments, and I don't even own this office. Back to you, Michael.
Well, I have this. So first of all, thank you for sharing that. And um, the the charities aren't going to do it because they're funded for research by government. Um, and there's like I was on the board of the King Cancer Society and whatnot, and they're not going to solve the problem. So the thing that I think is most interesting place to solve, this is for me personally, and I get like your feedback, is that there's 100 million people involved with cancer in North America. There's 22 million cancer survivors, and there's five people per family. I'm just picking a number, but there's 100 million people. And not only that, and some of them overlap because, and so it's such a big group. And yet, so we just had our elections in Canada. There was not one mention of healthcare. And what do people say? I think that you're nothing without your health, and it's just not on the agenda. And then Mark's told me it's being suppressed because of big pharma and all that stuff. Fine. Okay, great. Uh, but there's I think there's an opportunity for groundswell. And everybody's doing their own thing and trying to make their own mission company. But there's something out there that I believe there could be a movement created to. So okay, sorry, I got to go back a step. The way I raised $550 million for the Canadian Cancer Society is I had a vision that no cancer charity should compete. Why are we competing? It's ridiculous. Um, and at the end of the day, the Canadian Cancer Society merged with breast cancer and prostate cancer. And that freed up $55 million that was all given to research because of duplications. So let's multiply that through every, that whole thing. Like, why are we not banding together and getting, no, why isn't it on the top of the agenda? One or two people get cancer. Like, we just accepted it. So I'm just going on a soapbox to say, I think I think there's a way to get everybody together, um, to bring it to the top of the agenda. So
What a story you just told about, your efforts. I always tell my kids there's a financial component to everything.
sure.
And, might as well just say one of the reasons I'm kind of, being selective about what I say, walking on eggshells a little bit today. I do represent that biochemist, and we do it in such a way that it's income producing, not just for me, but for others. And so it's something that, when we work on the healthy side of things, hopefully you don't hear me speaking too much Greek and Latin. I can do it if I have to, but we speak in ways that everybody can understand. And we do things that are actually good for you. That old deal. We want to help you to help you. We want to bring the control back within your realm. We want you to be the captain of your ship, that you get to decide, that you don't get the canned answer and only the canned answer. No matter where you go, you get the canned answer. It's my belief that the standard of care is desperate care because you would not do it if you weren't desperate. Let's just call it desperate care. Let's work with our languaging. I believe that I might be part of the seed of the thing that possibly brings it all back together. Still tiny, but I was in touch with the UK and Canada already this morning, right before I came on with you guys. And I think, we don't have to do it all the first call. And, thank you guys for being interested. I watch your heads bobbing up and down, which encourages me to say more. And I think I've said about as much as I should. I want to pass it back to Mark. Thank you for being interested in working together. Thank you for being interested in, I guess me and what I do. It is fascinating. It is useful to everyone, every human on earth. Think about it this way. All the afflictions of humans either are, or at the very least are made worse by the pollutants that get into our bodies every day. One of the things I can do is help you to pee that out. That's enough. Back to you, Mark.
Thank you so much, Jeff. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to close out the recording. So we're going to do, oh, go ahead, James. Go ahead, James.
Can I just ask you a quick question?
Sure, sure.
Chip, what an insightful talk today. Thank you so much. I truly enjoyed this. I was wondering, how can we stay in touch with you?
Mark knows. I'm very grateful that, Thomas Anthony has been willing to be interested in what I'm doing. He's a student of the great speakers of all time. That's one of his fascinations. He reached out to Mark. Mark, thank you for being curious and interested. And through them is the avenue to me. The way I do things, I always want the new person and the original person. And then once you get then it's pretty common for me to have a doctor call me with a patient in his office, but they're exotic doctors. They are on their own. They're not part of a big institution. That's kind of my normal day.
Right.
All right.
Chip, can I ask
So
a question?
it's out and it's getting bigger. It's getting bigger. Yes.
What do you do for the mental health component of, you get cancer, right? There's a mental health immediately is there, and families obviously have the mental health to deal with that. how do you what do you suggest? Is there products you have, or I'm just curious what
Yeah, well,
you're
there
finding.
are, yes, absolutely. It's pretty common for me to have someone call me in tears and say nobody knew that I was not wanting to go on. But here's part of the secret to it, Michael. We are walking, talking biochemical reactions,
Yep.
including our moods and our thoughts. You know, how frequently you think about sex, for example. That's all hormones. That's all chemical. Your mood, whether you land sunny side up or the other side up every morning. And there are most of the things are made in your gut that are active in your brain that make you cheerful. And so there are ways that you can intentionally support those systems and look at the exact same situation and think, I believe that is within my control, not out of control. And feeling like it's out of control. And what are we doing here? Why are we together? We are setting out as a group to take control of an uncontrollable situation that's gone way off the rails. And what do we get from being together? We get the impression, at least the hope, the plan to take control of an uncontrollable situation, to remain captain of our own ship. And I can work with people that are the captain of their own ship. If they're not, if they've handed themselves in a shoebox to the medical community and just going to do whatever, that's out of my reach. But I can tell from the expressions and the bobbing heads that we are all on the same page. And I generally demand that I learn something when I come someplace to speak. That happened during the introductions before we started the recording. So if somebody's out there considering coming to these and joining Mark Kageyama in his conquering, see, I can't use disease names.
Why can't you
And using
why can't you
and
do that?
conquering because I represent natural products.
Oh, I
You know,
see.
I'm supposed
Oh,
to,
okay.
you know, if it's the name of an institution, probably because it's the name of the group, I could say it. But I attempt to do things properly, and I'm not a doctor. Why is there a doctor, a diagnosis, a prescription, a pharmacist, and a medical device? They're there to protect you from the possible ill effects of the treatment. I'm also a compounding pharmacy tech
Oh, really? Okay.
to protect you from the ill effects of the treatments. On this side, can't hurt you. You can't do too much. You can't do it wrong. How do we help you to help you? A lifetime of answers to that question from one of the most brilliant people I've met in my life. And so thank you for, once again, thank you guys for having me over.
Thank you, Chip. What we're going to do right now is close out the recording, and then we'll discuss a little bit more and then close out the session. But thank you so much, Chip, and everybody else for participating. And it's been fascinating, absolutely fascinating, and we so appreciate your willingness to share and your input and your knowledge. So thank you so much. And we appreciate you for joining us here on our Cancer Conquering community. And, next week, in fact, let me go over next week's schedule. We are going to have, and I always try to mix things up. Next week, we're going to have a lady named Kelly Spillman, who is a professional comedian. And Kelly, I did an interview with her on my channel, and an amazing lady. She had chemo treatment and had a sack of chemo on her shoulder and performed stand up that night and got through it. I mean, if that's not amazing, I don't know what is. So next week we will have Kelly Spillman, which is going to be May 8th. And also to keep up for any updates on our Facebook page and just want to thank everyone for joining us here at our Cancer Conquering Community, and we're going to close out the recording.